The claiming was where the unwanted went to be sold. And as Bryony stood among the broken women who had been discarded or passed over, she did not lift her face. She did not try to catch anyone's eye. A heavy veil shrouded her completely, hiding what she could never let anyone see. The crowd whispered. What could be so wrong that even here, among the desperate, she needed to hide? They were not wrong to wonder. Beneath the fabric lay her curse, the silver eyes that marked her as void-born, the sole survivor of a village that had died screaming while she alone walked out untouched. People called her the Plague Bride, the Death Walker, the girl who carried ruin in her gaze. She would not be chosen if she hid her face. She would not survive if she showed it. Then the Alpha King arrived. Calder of Valdris, beautiful as winter frost and twice as cold, walked past noblewomen and princesses without a glance and stopped directly before her. "This one," he said. The hall erupted in shock. Why would a king who could have anyone choose the one woman hiding her face? Bryony did not understand either. Not until he made his terms clear. He would marry her, protect her, give her everything she needed. He would even swear never to look upon her, but only under one condition. "I want an heir," he told her, "not your love." Neither of them understood how impossible that vow would become. The great hall of Valdris had seen coronations and treaties and celebrations of conquest. Tonight it held a claiming. This was where unmated wolves came when no one else would have them. When age had withered their prospects, or scandal had ruined their names, or circumstance had marked them as undesirable. Wolves needed mates. The hierarchy demanded it. An unmated wolf disrupted the balance, and so the claiming existed to solve problems no one else wanted to solve. The men who attended were not looking for wives. They sought servants with status, bedmates with legitimacy, wombs to carry heirs they could not be bothered to care for. None came seeking love. The hall was crowded despite the late hour. Torchlight flickered across stone walls as the officiant droned through introductions, listing bloodlines and virtues with the enthusiasm of a merchant selling damaged goods. Bryony stood at the far end of the platform, cloaked head to foot in black fabric. She could feel every stare, every whisper sliding across her skin like fingers. "What is wrong with that one?" someone muttered. "Why does she hide? She must be hideous. She must be cursed." Both, Bryony thought bitterly. Both of those things are true. Her father stood near the edge of the crowd with her sister Neve at his side. Harkin Vance had not looked at Bryony once since they arrived. He was pretending not to know her. That was fine. She was pretending the same. If no one claimed her tonight, her father would be within his legal rights to sell her into servitude. That had been his plan from the beginning. The claiming was merely a formality, a public display of her worthlessness before he disposed of her properly. No one would choose a woman whose face they could not see. Sight unseen meant risk, and no man here wanted risk. They wanted certainty. They wanted control. Bryony had neither to offer. The officiant had moved on to the third woman when the great doors exploded open. Every voice died. Every head turned. The presence that rolled through the entrance was not merely dominant, it was overwhelming. The kind of power that pressed against the skin and made wolves want to bare their throats in submission. Bryony felt it even beneath her veil. Her wolf stirred, confused and alert. "The Alpha King," the officiant gasped. "Gods above, what is he doing here?" Calder of Valdris walked into the hall as if he owned it, which he did. Every stone, every torch, every soul in this room belonged to him by right of blood and conquest. He was tall, taller than any man present, with dark hair that fell past his shoulders and eyes the color of a winter sky just before a storm. Pale, clear, absolutely merciless. Rumors said noble women wept at the sight of him, that princesses from distant kingdoms invented excuses to visit Valdris just to glimpse his face. But Bryony thought the rumors did not capture the truth. Beautiful was too soft a word for those sharp cheekbones, for that jaw that looked carved from marble, for the cold that seemed to radiate from him despite the warmth of the torches. He should not be here. Kings did not attend claimings. Kings had their pick of empresses and heiresses and daughters of conquerors. They did not come to inspect the cast-offs. And yet, here he was. Calder stopped in the center of the hall. His gaze swept across the platform, passing over each woman with neither interest nor disdain. Just assessment. Calculation. His expression revealed nothing. "Continue," he said. The officiant needed 3 attempts to find his voice. "Your Majesty, we are deeply honored by your presence. If there is anything we can provide, any refreshment or—" I said continue. The command was quiet. It did not need to be loud. Every person in the hall felt the weight of it. The officiant bowed hastily and returned to his recitations, though his voice now trembled. Calder began walking toward the platform. Bryony's heart hammered against her ribs. She could hear his footsteps, measured and unhurried, growing closer. She heard him pause at the first woman. A long silence. Then the footsteps resumed. He had dismissed her. Another pause at the second woman. Another dismissal. He was working his way down the line, and Bryony was at the end. She kept her head bowed, her hands clasped tight beneath her cloak. Her wolf paced inside her, restless with an anxiety she could not name. The footsteps stopped directly in front of her. Bryony did not breathe, did not move. She stared at the stone beneath her veil and felt his presence like a cold wind against her skin. Seconds passed. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Then the Alpha King spoke. "This one!" Bryony's head snapped up before she could stop herself. Through her veil she could see him clearly, the sharp lines of his face. The pale eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her wolf want to flee. The hall had gone deathly silent. "Your Majesty," the officiant stammered. "This one has not yet been presented. We do not know her bloodline, her history, her—" "I do not care." Calder's voice cut through the protest like a blade. "I am claiming her. Is there an objection?" No one spoke. Bryony saw her father's face in the crowd. For one satisfying moment, Harkin Vance looked as if he might choke on his own tongue. "Then it is done." The Alpha King turned away. "Have her brought to the castle by morning." He walked out the way he had come, leaving chaos in his wake. And Bryony stood frozen on the platform, surrounded by whispers and stares, trying to understand what had just happened. He had chosen her. The one woman who hid her face. The one woman no one else would touch. The Alpha King of Valdris had claimed her, and she had no idea why. Through the carriage window, Bryony watched the castle rise against the pale morning sky. Stone towers pierced the clouds like black teeth. The fortress of Valdris was larger than any structure she had ever seen, imposing and ancient and utterly terrifying. She should be grateful. She knew this. Whatever awaited her inside those walls was better than what her father had planned. Servitude, degradation, perhaps death if she displeased whoever purchased her. The Alpha King had saved her from all of that. But why? The question had kept her awake through the night. Why would a man who could have anyone choose the one woman shrouded in mystery? He had not asked to see her face, had not demanded an explanation. He had simply pointed and claimed her as if selecting fruit at a market. The carriage stopped. A guard opened the door and extended his hand. Bryony took it, stepping down onto smooth cobblestones. The castle courtyard stretched before her, surrounded by high walls patrolled by armored soldiers. Everything was gray. The stone, the sky, the mood of the servants who watched her pass with curious eyes. She followed the guard through corridors that seemed endless. Her boots made no sound on the thick carpets. Tapestries lined the walls, depicting battles and hunts and wolves running beneath full moons. Everywhere she looked, She saw power, wealth, control. They stopped before a heavy oak door. The guard knocked twice. A muffled voice responded. He pushed the door open and gestured for her to enter. Bryony stepped inside. The room was a study. Shelves of books lined 3 walls. A massive desk dominated the center, covered in maps and documents, and a half-empty glass of something amber. A fire burned low in the hearth despite the summer warmth. And standing beside the window, backlit by gray morning light, was the Alpha King himself. He turned to look at her. The cold struck her first. Not physical cold, though that was there too. Something deeper. Something that radiated from him like frost spreading across glass. Her wolf shrank back, confused and wary. Bryony dropped into a curtsy. "Your Majesty." "Rise." She straightened. Through her veil, she studied him, noting the sharp cut of his jaw, the hard line of his mouth, the complete absence of warmth in his pale eyes. He was beautiful the way a winter storm was beautiful. Devastating. Dangerous. Utterly without mercy. "You are wondering why I chose you," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will explain once. Pay attention." He moved away from the window, his steps measured. "I require a wife. Specifically, I require an heir. The succession must be secured, and for that, I need a womb I can trust." The bluntness of it should have offended her. Instead, Bryony felt only a strange relief. At least he was honest. "I do not want a political marriage," he continued. "I do not want a princess with expectations. I do not want a noblewoman who will fill my court with scheming relatives." He stopped several feet away from her, his gaze fixed on her veiled face. "I want a woman who will give me children and expect nothing else in return. No affection, no companionship, no love." Bryony said nothing. Her heart was beating too fast. "You hide your face," he said. "I assume that means it is unpleasant to look upon. Perhaps scarred. Perhaps worse. I do not care. In fact, I prefer it." She could not help herself. "You prefer it, Your Majesty?" "I do." Something flickered in his pale eyes. Something she could not read. "A wife I have no desire to look at is a wife I will not become attached to. That is precisely what I need." He paused, as if waiting for her to protest, to weep, to flee. Instead, Bryony asked quietly, "What would be my duties?" For the first time, his expression shifted. Confusion, perhaps, or curiosity. "Give me heirs. Attend official functions when necessary. Otherwise, you may do as you please. I will provide you with servants, coin, and rooms of your own. You will want for nothing." "And you will never look upon me?" "Never." The word was flat, final. "I will never look beneath your veil. Neither will anyone in my household or my court. I will issue a decree. Anyone who attempts to see your face will be punished by death." Bryony's breath caught. "Your Majesty, you do not understand what you are offering." "I understand perfectly." "No." She took a step forward, desperation bleeding into her voice. "Before this goes further, you should know the truth about me, about why I hide. If you would just let me explain." He raised one hand, cutting her off. "I do not want explanations. I want an heir." His eyes held hers through the veil. "Not your secrets, not your history, not your love, just an heir. Is that understood?" Bryony stood frozen. This was madness. He was offering her everything she had ever needed: safety, protection, anonymity. A life where no one would see her cursed eyes. A husband who wanted nothing from her except what she could easily give. It was too good to be true. "Your Majesty," she whispered, "I accept your terms." He nodded once, as if he had expected nothing else. Then he turned away. "The wedding will take place in 3 days. My steward will see to the arrangements. You will have servants assigned to your care." Blind ones, if that is your preference. He was already walking toward the door, already dismissing her. Your Majesty, she called out. One question. He paused without turning. If you never intend to look at me, she asked, why did you choose me at all? You could have had anyone. The silence stretched. When he finally answered, his voice was so quiet she almost missed it. Because I knew I could never love a woman I could not see. The door closed behind him. Bryony stood alone in the study, trembling. She should feel relieved. She should feel grateful. Instead, she felt only a strange, hollow ache. He had chosen her because he believed she was unlovable. He was not wrong. The council chamber was larger than the entire house Bryony had grown up in. A long table stretched its length, surrounded by high-backed chairs occupied by advisors and ministers, and men whose faces blurred together in her exhausted mind. She had barely slept. The chambers they had given her were absurdly luxurious. A suite with a canopied bed and velvet curtains and more space than one person could possibly need. Blind servants had arrived within hours, just as the king had promised. They had bathed her gently, dressed her in soft fabrics, and brushed her hair beneath her veil. No one had been gentle with Bryony in a very long time. Now she sat near the head of the table, across from her father, trying to keep her hands from shaking. The king occupied the chair at the table's head, his expression as unreadable as ever. Pale eyes moved across the documents before him with cold precision. The contract is straightforward, he said. I will review the terms aloud for the record. One of the advisors shifted uncomfortably. Your Majesty, is this truly necessary? The lady's family has already agreed to. I will review the terms. The king's voice did not rise, but the advisor fell silent immediately. Calder lifted a document. First and most importantly, I will never look upon my wife's face. Neither will any member of my household, my court, or my kingdom. Anyone who attempts to see her will face execution. Bryony heard the intake of breath around the table. Execution was not a typical punishment for such a minor offense. But then, nothing about this arrangement was typical. Second, the king continued, my wife will provide me with heirs, preferably more than one. Beyond this duty, we will not share a life. We will occupy separate chambers. We will not dine together. We will not spend idle time in each other's company. She will attend official functions at my side when necessary to maintain appearances. That is all. He paused, his pale gaze lifting to find her veiled face. Third and finally, this marriage is contractual. I offer protection, comfort, and status. I expect an heir. His voice dropped. I do not offer love. I will never offer love. Is this understood? Before Bryony could respond, her father surged forward. Your Majesty, I must protest. Harkin Vance's voice dripped with false concern. You do not understand what you are agreeing to. If you knew what that veil concealed, you would never— I was not speaking to you. The words sliced through the air like a blade. Harkin froze, his mouth still open. Calder did not look at him. His gaze remained fixed on Bryony. I was speaking to my future queen. The emphasis on those words made something warm and unfamiliar take root in Bryony's chest. Is this agreeable to you? She met his eyes through her veil. Yes, Your Majesty. It is more than agreeable. You will sign? Gladly. She heard herself speak with a steadiness she did not feel. You offer me more than I deserve, more than I ever dared hope for. Silence. The advisors exchanged confused glances. Her father's expression twisted with fury. But the king's reaction was strangest of all. He looked perplexed. More than you hoped for, he repeated slowly. To be married to a man who wants nothing from you, who will never care for you, who offers you contract instead of courtship. Yes, Your Majesty. You find those terms generous. I find them merciful. Something shifted in his pale eyes. Something she could not name. His jaw tightened, and for a moment he looked almost uncomfortable. Very well. He pushed the contract toward her. Sign here. Bryony took the quill. Her hand trembled only slightly as she wrote her name. Her father signed as witness, his grip on the quill so tight she thought it might snap. The advisors signed, each one stealing glances at their king as if trying to understand what he was thinking. Then it was done. She was going to be queen. The corridors seemed longer on the way back to her chambers. Every courtier they passed stopped to stare. Every servant whispered behind their hands. Bryony kept her head down, her veiled face turned toward the floor. Is that her? I heard she is deformed. No, I heard she is cursed. But the king could have anyone. Why would he choose a woman he cannot even see? She was almost to the staircase when someone stepped into her path. Neve. Her sister wore a gown of pale green that made her eyes shine like spring leaves. She was beautiful. She had always been beautiful. The legitimate daughter, the favored child, the one their father actually loved. We need to talk, Neve said quietly. Bryony should have refused, should have kept walking, but some foolish part of her still hoped. They found an empty alcove beside a window overlooking the courtyard below. You can still refuse him, Neve said without preamble. Why would I? Because this is madness, Bryony. You cannot honestly believe the Alpha King will keep his promises. Her sister's voice dropped. He is curious about you now. The mystery intrigues him. But eventually that curiosity will demand answers. He will want to see what you are hiding. He has sworn never to look. And you believe him? Bryony said nothing. He is the most powerful wolf in 7 kingdoms. Neve stepped closer, her expression hardening. Women throw themselves at his feet. Noble families beg for the chance to marry their daughters to him. And you think he will remain content with a wife he has never seen? You think he will never grow curious about what lies beneath that veil? It does not matter what he sees. The words came out steadier than she felt. He already knows I am hiding something terrible. Does he know what you are? Her sister's voice dropped to a hiss. Does he know about Thornwick? The name struck Bryony like a physical blow. Thornwick. The village where she had been born. The village that had died screaming of plague while she alone walked out untouched. 300 souls in one night, including her mother, and Bryony had survived without a single mark. He does not know, she whispered. Then what happens when he finds out? Neve seized her wrist. What happens when someone tells him his new queen is voidborn, that she watched her entire village die and did nothing, that some people believe she caused it? I did not cause it. Can you prove that? Bryony pulled her arm free. Her eyes burned behind her veil. I did not cause the plague. I do not know why I survived. But I did not kill those people. Tell that to the king when he discovers the truth. Neve's beautiful face twisted. Tell that to the man who just promised to execute anyone who looks at you. Do you think that protection will last once he learns what you are? She turned to leave, then paused. Father wanted you sold into servitude. I thought that was cruel. Her voice was quiet now, almost pitying. But perhaps it would have been kinder. At least slaves know their place. You have somehow convinced a king to marry you, and when he discovers your secret. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Neve walked away, her green gown swishing against the stone floor. Bryony stood alone in the alcove, staring at nothing, her sister's words echoing in her skull. When he discovers your secret. When? Not if. 3 days until the wedding. 3 days until she became queen to a king who wanted nothing from her but an heir. 3 days until she bound herself to a man who would surely destroy her if he ever learned the truth. Bryony pressed her palm against the cold window glass and tried to steady her breathing. She had survived Thornwick. She had survived her father. She would survive this too. She had to. The Cathedral of Valdres was ancient. Its stone walls had witnessed 1,000 weddings, 1,000 coronations, 1,000 oaths sworn before gods who might or might not be listening. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. A king marrying a woman whose face he had never seen. Bryony sat rigid in the carriage as it rolled through streets packed with onlookers. Thousands of them, pressing against barriers, craning their necks for a glimpse of the mysterious bride. She could hear their voices even through the carriage walls. "I heard she is foreign royalty in hiding." "No, she is a criminal seeking asylum." "She must be hideous. Why else would she cover her face?" Let them wonder, Bryony thought. Let them imagine the worst. The truth was far more terrible than anything they could invent. The carriage stopped. A footman opened the door. Bryony took his offered hand and stepped onto smooth stone, her black veil rippling in the wind. The crowd's noise swelled to a roar. "Her veil is so thick," someone shouted. "I cannot see anything at all." "We will see her when she exits. The king will unveil her for the blessing." Bryony's stomach clenched. The unveiling. She had not considered that tradition. Every bride in Valdres was unveiled by her husband after the vows, presented to the gods and the kingdom as his chosen mate. Would Calder demand the same? She walked toward the cathedral entrance alone. No father to escort her, no family to witness her joy. Just the weight of 1,000 stairs and the distant tolling of bells. The moment she crossed the threshold, the noise faded. Inside, the cathedral stretched upward into shadows, its vaulted ceiling lost in darkness. Candles flickered in iron sconces. Incense thickened the air until breathing felt like drowning. The pews were packed. Nobility in silks and velvets, jewels glittering at throats and wrists. Every face turned toward her with naked curiosity. The whispers started immediately. "What does she look like beneath that shroud?" "Perhaps she is burned. I heard there was a fire." "No, it must be worse than burns. Why else would the king agree to never look?" Bryony kept her gaze fixed ahead. The aisle stretched before her like a road to execution. And at its end, waiting beside the altar, stood Calder. He wore black. Of course he did. The formal jacket emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, the narrow cut of his waist. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp architecture of his face, and his eyes, pale as winter frost, watched her approach with no expression at all. Her wolf stirred uneasily. Something was wrong with his scent. It was too controlled, too cold. Wolves could not mask their emotions so completely. Feelings always bled through. But from Calder she sensed nothing. The priest began the ceremony. His voice echoed through the vast space, reciting words Bryony barely heard. She was too aware of the man beside her. The chill that radiated from his body. The absolute stillness of his presence. "Do you, Calder of Valdres, Alpha King of the 7 territories, take this woman as your wife, your queen, your mate?" "I do." His voice was steady, empty. The priest turned to her. "And do you, Bryony of House Vance, take this man as your husband, your king, your mate?" "I do." The words felt strange in her mouth. Foreign, as if someone else were speaking them. "The rings," the priest called. Calder took her hand. Bryony gasped. His skin was cold. Not cool the way skin sometimes felt in winter. Cold. As if he had been standing in snow for hours. As if ice lived beneath his flesh instead of blood. He slid the ring onto her finger without acknowledging her reaction. His touch remained gentle despite the chill. When he released her hand, she found herself missing the contact. "By the authority vested in me," the priest intoned, "I pronounce you husband and wife, alpha and queen, mates bound by sacred vow." The cathedral held its breath. The verbal claiming, the priest prompted. Calder turned to face her fully. Even through her veil, she could see every detail of his face, the sharp cheekbones, the firm mouth, the eyes that revealed nothing. "I claim you as mine," he said, his voice carrying through the silent hall. "My wife, my queen, my mate." Something stirred inside Bryony. Her wolf lifted its head, alert and wanting. But there was no snap of a mate bond, no overwhelming pull. That would come later when they completed the physical claiming, if it came at all. "I claim you as mine," she echoed. "My husband, my king, my mate." The priest smiled. "Your Majesty, you may now unveil your bride." The cathedral went utterly still. This was the moment everyone had waited for. The revelation of the mysterious woman's face. The answer to every whispered question. Bryony's pulse roared in her ears so loud she could hear nothing else. "Your Majesty," she whispered, so quietly only he could hear. "Please." Calder studied her veiled face. His expression remained unreadable. "Do you want me to unveil you?" he asked, equally quiet. "No." The word came out strangled. "But I understand if you must." A long pause. The crowd leaned forward, straining to hear. Then Calder did something no one expected. He took her hand, lifted it slowly, and pressed his lips to her gloved knuckles. The kiss was gentle, formal. His mouth was cold against the fabric, but the gesture itself carried warmth she had not anticipated. He held her hand a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across her fingers. Then he released her and turned to face the crowd. "My queen has chosen to remain veiled," he announced. "I have honored that choice. Anyone who questions my decision is welcome to discuss it with me privately." The threat hung in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. The crowd erupted in confused murmurs. The priest looked lost. The nobility exchanged shocked glances. But Bryony stood frozen, her hand still tingling where his lips had touched. He had honored her wish. He had chosen her dignity over tradition. He had protected her before the entire kingdom. "Thank you," she whispered. Calder offered his arm. "Come, the feast awaits." She took his arm, feeling the cold even through layers of fabric, and walked beside him down the aisle. The crowd parted before them, still buzzing with questions and theories. The mysterious queen remained veiled. The king seemed not to care. And somewhere deep inside Bryony's chest, something dangerous began to take root. The chambers prepared for the wedding night were larger than the house where Bryony had grown up. Candles flickered on every surface, casting dancing shadows across silk curtains and velvet bedding. Rose petals scattered the floor. Incense burned in silver holders, filling the air with sweetness. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. The blind servants had bathed her in milk and honey, brushed her hair until it shone beneath her veil, dressed her in a nightgown so thin it might as well have been mist. Then they had left her alone to wait. The contract had been clear. She would give him heirs. That meant tonight. That meant this. Bryony sat on the edge of the bed and tried to steady her breathing. Her fingers twisted in the delicate fabric of her nightgown. Her wolf paced restlessly inside her, uncertain whether to anticipate or flee. 3 soft knocks at the door. "Enter," she managed. Calder stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He had changed from his formal wedding clothes. Gone was the elaborate black jacket. In its place, a simple white shirt unlaced at the throat, revealing the strong column of his neck. His dark hair hung loose around his shoulders. In the candlelight, he looked less like a king and more like a man. A beautiful man. A terrifying man. His pale eyes swept the room before settling on her veiled form. Even across the distance, she felt the weight of that gaze. "You are nervous," he said. "Yes. I can smell it." He moved closer, his footsteps silent on the thick carpet. "Fear. Anxiety. Something else I cannot name. Bryony's hands twisted in her lap. I have never done this before. He stopped several feet away. I assumed as much. Silence stretched between them. The candles flickered. Somewhere outside, a wolf howled at the moon. Bryony found herself studying his silhouette, the broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, the way he held himself with absolute control. Then Calder reached into his pocket and withdrew a strip of black silk. I will wear this, he said quietly, a blindfold, so that even in darkness, even accidentally, I cannot see your face. Bryony stared at the silk in his hand. You would blind yourself for me? I gave you my word. He held out the blindfold. Will you tie it? She rose on shaking legs and crossed the distance between them. Up close, she could see details the distance had hidden. The faint scar at the corner of his mouth. The individual dark lashes framing his pale eyes, the slight tension in his jaw. He was nervous too. The realization startled her. Bryony took the blindfold from his hand, her fingers brushing his. The cold of his skin made her gasp. You are freezing. A condition, he said flatly. It does not affect my abilities. She wanted to ask more, but his expression made clear the topic was closed. Instead, she stepped behind him and reached up to secure the blindfold. She had to rise on her toes. Her fingers trembled as she tied the knot, lingering perhaps a moment too long against the warmth of his hair. She could smell him this close. Pine and winter air and something darker beneath. Something that made her wolf stir with unexpected interest. The candles, he said. What? Extinguish them. Complete darkness. Then you may remove your veil if you wish. Her throat tightened. You would trust me with that freedom? I would trust you with far more than that. Bryony moved through the room, snuffing each candle until complete darkness swallowed them. The flames died one by one, each extinction deepening the shadows until she could see nothing at all. Only then did she reach up and lift the veil from her face. The air felt strange against her bare skin. She had worn the veil for so long that its absence felt like nakedness, more intimate than removing her clothes. It is done, she whispered. She heard him turn toward the sound of her voice, felt him move closer. The temperature dropped as his body neared hers, that strange cold radiating from him like winter itself. She shivered, but not entirely from the chill. I can smell your nervousness, he said again, but I smell something else now too. What? His hand rose slowly in the darkness, giving her time to retreat. When she did not move, his palm settled gently on her shoulder. Cold, so cold. But the touch itself was careful. Tender. His fingers curled slightly against her skin, as if testing the warmth of her. Curiosity, he said, and something warmer beneath the fear. His thumb traced small circles against her bare skin. Bryony felt herself relaxing despite everything, despite the darkness, despite the strangeness, despite the man she barely knew whose cold hands were slowly mapping the curve of her shoulders. May I? He asked. Yes. His fingers slipped beneath the thin straps of her nightgown. He paused, waiting. She made a soft sound of permission. He slid the straps down with aching slowness. First one shoulder, his fingertips trailing lightly against her skin, leaving trails of cold that somehow burned. Then the other. The silk whispered down her body and pooled at her feet. Bryony stood naked before her husband. In complete darkness, she could see nothing. But she could feel everything. The cold air against her heated skin, the proximity of his body, the shift in his breathing as he sensed her vulnerability. Her nipples tightened in the chill, and she heard his sharp intake of breath as if he somehow knew. You are warm, he murmured. So warm. I have never felt anything like it. His hands found her waist, his palms pressing flat against her ribs. The contrast between his cold skin and her heated flesh sent electricity crackling through her. She arched slightly into his touch, surprising herself. "And you are freezing," she whispered back. "Does it hurt?" A pause. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Not when I touch you. When I touch you, I feel warm. For the first time in years." Something about those words made her chest ache with an emotion she could not name. Bryony reached for him, her fingers finding the collar of his shirt. She fumbled with the buttons, clumsy in the darkness, clumsy with need she did not fully understand. Each button revealed more of his cold skin, and she found herself pressing her palms against him, sharing her warmth. "Let me," he said. She heard fabric rustle as he removed the shirt. Then his bare chest pressed against hers and they both gasped at the sensation. Warmth and cold. Two opposites meeting and creating something neither had expected. His mouth found hers in the darkness. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory. His lips were cool and soft, moving against hers with patience she had not anticipated. Her first kiss, and it was nothing like she had imagined. Better, overwhelming, perfect. She tasted winter on his tongue, snow and pine and something darker beneath. He kissed her as if learning her, as if memorizing the shape of her mouth for some future when he might need to remember. Her hands gripped his shoulders for balance as the kiss deepened. His tongue traced the seam of her lips and she opened for him, letting him in, letting him claim her mouth the way he would soon claim her body. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "The bed," he said roughly. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, carrying her across the room with sure steps despite his blindfold. His arms were strong around her, his cold skin pressed against her warmth, and she found herself clinging to him with an urgency that surprised her. When he laid her down on the silk sheets, his hands never stopped touching her. Her arms, her ribs, the curve of her hip. He mapped her body in the darkness, learning her by touch alone, and she realized this was how he would always know her. Not by sight, but by sensation. By the warmth of her skin and the sound of her breath, and the way she responded to his touch. "Tell me if I hurt you," he murmured against her throat. "Tell me if you want me to stop." "I do not want you to stop." His mouth traced down her neck, leaving cold kisses that somehow burned. When his lips reached the hollow of her throat, she arched into him, a sound escaping her that she did not recognize. "That sound," he said, his voice thick with something like wonder. "Make it again." She did. She could not help it. His mouth and hands were everywhere, learning her body in the darkness, discovering what made her gasp and writhe and beg. He took his time, impossibly patient, as if he had been waiting his entire life for this and refused to rush it now. When they finally came together, there was a moment of sharp discomfort. She tensed. He stilled immediately. "Breathe," he whispered. "Just breathe for me." She breathed. The discomfort faded, and then there was only sensation. Only connection, only two bodies moving together in perfect rhythm, creating heat and friction and something that felt dangerously close to magic. His breathing grew ragged, his movements less controlled. "You are so warm," he gasped against her ear. "It is almost too much." "Is it bad?" she managed. "No." The word came out as a groan. "It is everything. You are everything." Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. His skin was still cold, but she found she did not mind. The contrast felt right, necessary, as if they had been designed for each other, two puzzle pieces finally fitting together. For a long moment, neither spoke. They simply breathed together, hearts racing in tandem, bodies cooling from the heat they had generated. Then he moved away. She heard him dressing in the darkness. Fabric rustling, buttons clicking. Her chest tightened with disappointment she had no right to feel. But before he left, his footsteps returned to the bed. His cold fingers found her hand. He lifted it to his lips and kissed each knuckle slowly, reverently, as if her hand were something precious. "Thank you," he murmured, "for tonight, for your warmth." The tenderness in his voice made her eyes burn with tears she would not let fall. Then he was gone. Bryony lay alone in the darkness, touching the hand he had kissed, trying to understand why his absence already felt like loss. Weeks passed, then months, and every night without fail, Calder came to her chambers. What had begun as contractual obligation had become something else, something neither of them named. He arrived earlier each evening now, sometimes before dinner, eating with her in her private rooms before taking her to bed. They talked. That surprised her most of all. About the kingdom, about trade disputes and border tensions, and the challenges of ruling wolves who respected only strength. He asked her opinion on matters of state, and actually listened to her answers. "You think I should reduce taxes on the northern territories," he said one evening, studying her across the dinner table. His pale eyes held genuine curiosity rather than dismissal. "I think hungry wolves make desperate decisions." Bryony set down her fork. "Feed them properly and they will have no reason to raid their neighbors." The Treasury advisors would disagree. "The Treasury advisors have never known hunger." She paused, then added more quietly, "I have. When you do not know where your next meal will come from, you stop caring about laws and consequences. You care only about survival." He was quiet for a long moment. His expression shifted, something almost like tenderness breaking through the ice. Then he nodded slowly. "I will consider your counsel." Warmth spread through her at his words. He valued her thoughts. He sought her wisdom. He treated her as a partner, not a possession. Their conversations grew longer as the weeks passed. He told her about his childhood, the coldness that had always lived in his blood, the distance his parents had maintained from him. She told him about Thornwick without telling him everything, about the mother who had loved her, about the sister who had resented her, about the father who had despised her very existence. "He sounds monstrous," Calder said one night, his voice tight with anger on her behalf. "He is what he is. I stopped hoping for his love long ago." "That does not make it acceptable." She had no answer for that, so instead she reached for him, pulling him close, letting her warmth chase away the cold that always lingered in his skin. And the nights. Gods, the nights. Bryony had visited Lady Mirren, a courtesan of legendary reputation, to seek advice on pleasing a husband. The woman had smiled knowingly and offered suggestions that made Bryony blush. She put those suggestions to practice. Calder seemed very pleased. More than pleased. Some nights he lost control entirely, his careful composure shattering under her touch. Those were the nights she treasured most, when he stopped being a king and became simply a man. Her man. But it was never enough for her. He still left before dawn, still dressed in the darkness, and returned to his own chambers. She wanted him to stay, wanted to wake beside him, wanted to feel his cold arms around her as morning light crept through the curtains. Exhaust him, Lady Mirren had advised when Bryony returned for more counsel. Make him too tired to leave. So Bryony tried. One night she kept him until the fourth time, until his body shook with release, and his arm came around her automatically, pulling her against his chest. Within moments, his breathing evened into sleep. She lay very still, hardly daring to move, delighted beyond measure. His cold body pressed against her warm one, his arm heavy across her waist. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and slow, could feel his breath against her hair. In the morning, his fingers found the edge of his blindfold, touching it absently. "You stayed," she whispered. "I could not have moved if I tried." She heard the smile in his voice. "You have thoroughly destroyed me." Is that a complaint? It is a compliment. She pressed closer to his cold body, savoring the contrast against her warmth. You really do not mind the blindfold? I would very much like to see you, he admitted. More than you know. Sometimes I lie awake wondering what color your eyes are, what shape your lips take when you smile. His hand stroked down her spine, leaving trails of cold that made her shiver with pleasure. But not if it causes you distress. Not if it makes you unhappy. Why does it matter? My happiness? He was quiet for a long moment. She felt his chest rise and fall beneath her cheek. I do not know, he said finally. It should not matter. Our arrangement was clear. An heir, she said. Not my love. Yes. And yet, you keep returning? Yes. Why? He did not answer, but his arms tightened around her and he pressed a kiss to her shoulder that felt like a confession. The mate bond was forming. Bryony could feel it. A golden thread connecting her heart to his, growing stronger with each night they spent together. She craved him when he was away, dreamed of him when she slept, found herself counting the hours until sunset when he would return to her. She was falling in love with him. No, she had already fallen, but she could not tell him. The contract had been clear. An heir, not love. He did not want her heart, only her body. The cold spells worried her. Some nights she woke to find him shivering beside her despite being buried under blankets. His skin would turn nearly blue, frost forming on his lips and lashes. She would build the fire higher, wrap herself around him, share every ounce of her warmth until the chill receded. What causes this? She asked one night as he trembled against her. I told you. A condition. His teeth chattered. It has always been this way. There must be something we can do. There is nothing. His voice was flat. Final. It is part of who I am. She did not believe him. But she let it go, choosing instead to hold him closer, to love him with her body, since he would not accept her heart. Then one night, after months of this strange half-marriage, Bryony waited until they lay together in the darkness, his breathing slow and content, before she spoke. I am pregnant. Calder went completely still. You are certain? The healer confirmed it today. Silence stretched. She could not read his scent, could not see his expression, could only wait in the darkness for his response. Then his hand found her stomach, pressing flat against the place where their child grew. We are having a child, he breathed. Yes. A child. Wonder filled his voice. Joy she had never heard from him before. Our child. He pulled her close, his cold arms wrapping around her, his face pressed against her hair. She could feel his heart racing against her back. Thank you, he murmured. Thank you, Bryony. Relief flooded through her. He was happy. He wanted this child. But beneath the relief, fear coiled. He has what he needs now, she thought. An heir. The purpose of our arrangement is fulfilled. Why would he keep coming once I have given him what he wanted? The following nights proved her wrong. He returned every evening more devoted than before, more possessive. His hands constantly found her stomach, marveling at the life growing within. He made plans, talked about nurseries and tutors and what they would teach their son or daughter. His voice was warm with excitement, with love. He loves the child, she realized. Even unborn, he loves it. But does he love me? She was too afraid to ask. When the baby came, a girl with dark hair and pale eyes like her father, Bryony wept with relief. The birth had been difficult, but the child was healthy. Perfect. Beautiful. The midwife placed the baby in Calder's arms. Bryony watched her husband stare down at their daughter with wonder, with terror, with overwhelming love. His expression cracked open, revealing depths of emotion she had never seen from him. And something inside her shattered. Because it was over now. He had his heir. He had what he needed. He would stop coming, stop touching her, stop pretending they were anything more than a contract fulfilled. She began to cry. Bryony. Calder looked up immediately, his expression shifting to alarm. What is wrong? Are you in pain? She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Tell me. He set the baby gently in the cradle and crossed to her side, his cold hands finding hers. Please tell me what is wrong. You are going to leave, she managed between sobs. You have what you wanted. You will stop coming to my chambers and I will... She could not finish. What? His voice was bewildered. No. Bryony, no. But you said. She gasped for breath. You said you wanted an heir. Not my love. You said once I gave you children, we would have nothing more to do with each other. I was wrong. His grip on her hands tightened almost painfully. I was so wrong. Please, you have to understand. I love you, Bryony cried. The words spilled out before she could stop them. I know I should not. I know it was not part of our arrangement. But I love you, Calder. I have loved you for months, and I cannot bear the thought of losing you. He went absolutely still. For a long moment, he did not speak, did not move, did not breathe. Then he brought her hands to his lips, pressing desperate kisses to her knuckles. You love me, he repeated, his voice strange. Yes. You love me. Yes. His eyes met hers. Even through her veil, even in the dim light of the birthing chamber, she could see something breaking open inside him, something he had kept locked away for years. I love you too, he said. And then his face went white. His hand flew to his chest, clutching at his heart. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. Frost began spreading across his skin, visible even through his shirt, climbing up his neck toward his face. Calder? Bryony struggled to sit up. Calder, what is happening? He tried to speak. No words came out. His whole body convulsed, his eyes rolling back. Then the Alpha King collapsed to the floor and did not move. Help! Bryony screamed. Someone help me! The king is dying! Guards burst through the door. Servants flooded the chamber. But they all stopped short at the sight of their king lying motionless on the floor, frost spreading across his skin like creeping death. Do not just stand there! Bryony struggled from the bed, her body still weak from childbirth. Fetch the healers! Fetch everyone! But even as she spoke, even as chaos erupted around her, she knew. This was not illness. This was not injury. This was magic. She fell to her knees beside Calder, her hands finding his face. His skin was so cold it burned. The frost had climbed past his neck now, crystallizing along his jaw, creeping toward his eyes. Calder. She gripped his shoulders. Calder, please, wake up. Tell me what is happening. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, fading. It is no use, he whispered. His voice was barely audible. There is no cure. There never was. What are you talking about? Tears tracked down her cheeks. What is this? What is happening to you? His hand found hers, the grip terrifyingly weak. There is a curse, he said slowly, each word costing him effort. On all the kings of my bloodline, we cannot love. Bryony shook her head. I do not understand. If we ever fall in love, he coughed, frost crackling at the corners of his mouth. Truly, deeply, completely in love, the curse activates. Our hearts freeze. We die. The words hit her like a physical blow. No, she breathed. No, that cannot be true. My ancestor. Calder's eyes drifted closed, then opened again with visible effort. Generations ago, he feared that love would make him weak, that enemies would use his heart against him. So he sought out a void-born witch and asked her to ensure no king of Valdris would ever be vulnerable to love. Bryony's blood went cold at the word. Void-born. like her. She agreed, Calder continued. But she twisted his wish. Instead of making us immune to love, she made love fatal to us. Every king since has been incapable of feeling it. Or rather, he laughed bitterly, the sound dissolving into a cough. Incapable of surviving it. Then how? Bryony's voice broke. How are you dying now? You said you did not want my love. You said... I lied. His hand tightened on hers. To myself most of all. I chose you because I thought I could never love someone I had never seen. I thought keeping you hidden would keep my heart safe. But it did not. No. His pale eyes found hers through her veil. I fell in love with you, Bryony. With your voice, your warmth, your wisdom, your kindness. Every part of you I could know. I loved. And now? Then I am killing you. The realization crashed over her. My very existence is killing you. No. His voice was fierce despite its weakness. You gave me life. For the first time, I understood what it meant to truly live. You made me happy. So happy. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I have no regrets. What if you stopped? Bryony clutched at desperate hope. What if you stopped loving me? Would the curse reverse? Calder looked at her with such tenderness it shattered her heart. I could never stop loving you, he said, even if I wanted to, which I do not. Then give me a reason to make you stop. Bryony's hands went to her veil with shaking fingers. What if you saw what I really am? What if you knew the truth? Bryony, do not. You need to see. She was crying openly now, tears soaking the fabric she was about to remove. You need to know what you married. Then you will hate me enough to live. Before he could protest, she pulled the veil from her face. Candlelight fell across her features for the first time. She watched his eyes widen, watched him take in the face he had never seen, and waited for the disgust. Instead, wonder filled his expression. You are beautiful, he breathed. Look closer. Bryony tilted her head so he could see her eyes clearly. Look at what I am. Silver. Her eyes were pure silver without pupil or iris. Inhuman. Unmistakable. The mark of the void-born. Calder's gaze fixed on her eyes, and for one desperate moment she hoped. Surely this would be enough. Surely this monstrous sight would kill his love. You are void-born, he said slowly. Yes. She forced the words out. My village, Thornwick. 300 people died in a single night. A plague that came from nowhere and killed everyone it touched. Everyone except me. His expression did not change. I walked out of that village without a mark on me, she continued, while bodies lay rotting in the streets, while my own mother choked on her last breath. I survived, and no one could explain why. Still he watched her. Still he listened. People believe I caused it. Her voice cracked. They call me the plague bride, the death walker. They think my void-born eyes carry death itself, that anyone who looks upon them will sicken and die. But that is not true. I do not know what is true. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I do not know what I am or what I can do. I only know that everyone who has ever seen my eyes has either died or wished me dead. So please. She gripped his hands. Please let this be enough. Hate me, fear me. Stop loving me and live. Calder reached up with a trembling hand and cupped her cheek. How can you ask that? He said softly. When I love you more now than I did a moment ago. No. She shook her head desperately. You cannot. You were willing to show me your deepest shame. His thumb stroked across her cheekbone. Your greatest fear. The secret you have hidden your entire life. Just to try to save mine. His voice broke. How could I not love you more for that? Calder, please. You did not kill those people? His words came with absolute certainty. I know you did not. Whatever happened at Thornwick, it was not your doing. You are the kindest soul I have ever known. You could not cause such destruction. You cannot know that? I can. He smiled weakly. Because I know you. Every part of you that matters. And none of it is capable of murder. But even as he spoke, his eyes fluttered. His hand fell from her face. The frost spread further, crawling across his forehead now, crystallizing in his dark hair. Calder! She shook him. Stay with me, please. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Then his eyes closed completely. And he did not open them again. 3 weeks had passed since their daughter's birth. 3 weeks of Bryony barely sleeping, dividing every moment between her newborn child and her dying husband. The frost had spread to cover most of Calder's body. His skin was translucent, his lips blue, his breathing so shallow she had to press her ear to his chest to confirm he still lived. Yesterday, he had stopped responding entirely. I want a void-born witch brought to the castle, Bryony told the council. The most powerful one you can find. The councillors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Your Majesty, the eldest began carefully, void-born are forbidden in Valdris. The king himself upheld that law. To bring one here would be... The king is dying. Bryony's voice cut like a blade. Your healers have done nothing. Your medicines have failed. I am Queen Regent while my husband lies frozen, and I will use every scrap of that power to save him. But your Majesty, find me a void-born witch. She rose from her chair, her silver eyes blazing. Or I will disband this council and find people who will actually help me save my mate. Silence crashed over the room. There is one, a younger counselor said reluctantly. A healer in the eastern mountains. Powerful. Ancient. She is said to be the last of the true void-born bloodline. Send for her immediately. The witch arrived by nightfall. She was old, older than anyone Bryony had ever seen. Her eyes were silver like Bryony's own, but deeper somehow, as if they contained centuries of knowledge and sorrow. She examined Calder for a long time, her gnarled hands hovering over his frozen form. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with recognition. Ice magic, she said. A curse rooted deep in the bloodline, very old, very powerful. Can you break it? Bryony demanded. The witch shook her head slowly. It is a family curse, not merely his own. That makes it far more difficult to unravel. Bryony looked down at her daughter, sleeping peacefully in her cradle. Does that mean my child will be cursed too? It is possible. If the curse is not broken, every descendant who carries royal blood will inherit it. Horror flooded through Bryony, her innocent daughter, condemned never to love without dying. There must be a way, she said desperately. Tell me what is needed. The witch studied her with those ancient silver eyes. Voidborn magic takes many forms, she said. The one who cursed your husband's line wielded cold and death. But your power runs opposite. I can feel it within you, even sealed away as it is. Opposite? What do you mean? Warmth, life, restoration. The witch's gaze sharpened. You are two sides of the same ancient coin. Your power could counter the curse, if only you could access it. But something is blocking it. Someone has sealed your abilities away. Bryony's heart stopped. Her father. After Thornwick, after everyone blamed her for the plague, Harkin Vance had taken her to a witch. She remembered the ritual, the pain, the feeling of something being locked away deep inside her. He had sealed her void-born powers. I need that seal broken, Bryony said. How do I do that? Only the one who created the seal can release it. The witch's gaze was knowing, or destroy it entirely. Bryony understood. She needed to confront her father. She rode through the night, pushing her horse harder than she had ever pushed before. 2 guards flanked her, their wolves running alongside in the darkness. The Vance estate appeared at dawn, its familiar walls filling her with cold fury. She had sworn never to return here, had promised herself she was free of this place, and the man who had made her childhood a nightmare. But for Calder, she would face anything. She dismounted and strode toward the entrance. A servant tried to stop her. "My lady, your father is not receiving visitors. He will receive his queen." Bryony pushed past into the main hall. Harkin Vance stood by the fireplace, a glass of wine in his hand. When he saw her, his face twisted with disgust. Her sister Neve rose quickly from a chair by the window, her expression shocked. "You!" her father spat. "How dare you show your face here? How dare you show that face anywhere?" "I need you to release the seal on my powers," Bryony said without preamble. "Now." Harkin laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because the Alpha King is dying, because my void-born magic is the only thing that can save him. Because if you do not help me, I will have you arrested for treason and executed before sunset." "You would not dare." "Try me." For a long moment, father and daughter stared at each other. Two sets of silver eyes, though Harkin had always hidden his behind tinted spectacles, filled with matching fury. Wait. Silver eyes. Bryony's mind raced. Her father wore tinted spectacles constantly, had worn them for as long as she could remember. He claimed sensitivity to light. But now, in the dim morning of the hall, those spectacles had slipped, and she could see. "You are void-born," she breathed. "The power did not come from Mother's supposed affair. It came from you." Harkin's face went pale. "That is impossible," Neve said, shaking her head. "Father is not." "Look at his eyes." Bryony pointed with a trembling finger. "Look at them, Neve. They are silver. Just like mine." Neve stepped closer to their father, peering at his face. Her gasp confirmed everything. "You lied," Bryony said slowly, understanding crashing over her like a wave. "All those years you told everyone Mother had an affair with a Voidborn. You blamed her, banished her, let her die in shame. But the Voidborn blood came from you." "Shut up," Harkin snarled. "You knew." Bryony's voice rose. "You knew I inherited my powers from you. You knew Mother was innocent, and you let her suffer anyway. She was going to expose me." Her father's composure cracked. "She discovered the truth about my bloodline, was going to tell everyone. I had no choice." "No choice but to destroy an innocent woman?" Neve's voice shook. "Our mother? You do not understand." Harkin was backing away now, his eyes darting between his daughters. "My father sealed my powers when I was a child. Told me our bloodline was cursed. Told me to hide what we were at all costs. When your sister's powers manifested, I had to seal them too. Had to ensure no one discovered the truth." "And Thornwick?" The question tore from Bryony's throat. "What about Thornwick?" Silence. "The plague that killed 300 people." Bryony stepped closer. "The plague that killed my mother. The plague everyone blamed me for. Did you cause it?" Harkin's face told her everything. "You did." Horror and fury battled inside her. "You killed all those people. You killed Mother. And you let everyone believe I was responsible." "I had to test the extent of your powers," her father said desperately. "Had to know if the seal had held. When the plague struck and you survived, I knew your abilities were still partially active. I knew I needed to strengthen the binding. You murdered an entire village to test me? They were peasants. Nobodies. What did their lives matter compared to keeping our secret?" Neve moved before Bryony could react. Her sister's fist connected with their father's jaw with a sickening crack. Harkin stumbled backward, crashing into the fireplace mantel. His head struck stone. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Silence filled the hall. The sisters stared at each other across their father's prone body. "I am sorry," Neve whispered, "for everything, for believing him, for blaming you." Later, Bryony knelt beside her father, searching his pockets. "I need the seal. He must have an artifact, something that holds the binding in place." "His study," Neve was already moving. He keeps a locked box in his desk. He never lets anyone touch it. Bryony found the box within minutes. Inside, wrapped in black silk, was a small crystal sphere pulsing with dark light. She could feel her power trapped within it, beating against its prison like a caged bird. She closed her fist around it and shattered it against the floor. Power exploded through her. Silver light flooded her veins, her eyes, her entire being. She gasped as abilities she had never known surged to the surface. Not death, not plague, not destruction. Life, the power to heal, to restore, to undo curses woven from voidborn magic. She understood now. Voidborn were not harbingers of death. They were conduits of transformation. Her father had twisted his power toward destruction, but hers had always pulled toward creation. She was not a plague bringer, she was a plague breaker. Bryony mounted her horse and rode faster than she had ever ridden before. She burst into Calder's chambers as the sun reached its peak. The servants tried to stop her, alarmed by her glowing silver eyes, but she pushed past them all. Her husband lay on the bed, completely encased in frost now. Only his face remained visible, pale and still as death. Bryony climbed onto the bed beside him. She placed her hands on his frozen chest, feeling the ice that had stolen him from her. "Come back to me," she whispered. Silver light poured from her palms. Warmth flooded into him, void-born power meeting ancient curse. Warmth against ice, life against death. Love against the spell that had forbidden it. The frost began to melt. First his chest, then his arms, then his face. Color returned to his skin, his breathing deepened, and then his eyes opened. Bryony. His voice was hoarse but alive, so beautifully alive. "I am here." She was crying, silver tears streaming down her face. "I am here and you are not dying, not today, not ever." He reached up and touched her face, his hand warm now, truly warm for the first time since she had known him. "Your eyes," he murmured. "They are glowing. I broke the seal. I broke the curse." She laughed through her tears. "You are free, Calder. We are all free. Our daughter? She will never carry this burden. I made sure of it." He pulled her down into a kiss that tasted like warmth, like summer, like everything they had been denied. 6 months later, Bryony stood in the castle gardens, their daughter Sarah giggling in her arms. The kingdom had changed. Voidborn were no longer forbidden in Valdris. Calder had issued a proclamation recognizing them as healers, not harbingers. The witch who had come to help them now led a council of Voidborn, teaching others to use their powers for restoration rather than destruction. Harkin Vance sat in a prison cell, convicted of murder and conspiracy. He would spend his remaining years contemplating the destruction his secrets had wrought. And Neve had taken a seat on the royal council, determined to help build the kingdom her sister would one day rule alongside her mate. "My queen." A guard bowed. "The king requests your presence in the rose garden." Bryony smiled, the mate bond singing in her chest. She found Calder waiting beneath an arch of blooming roses. He looked healthy now, color in his cheeks, warmth in his skin. The coldness that had defined him was gone entirely, melted by love and broken curses. He pulled her close, careful of their daughter, and kissed her temple. "Do you remember what I said to you the day we met?" he murmured. "I want an heir, not your love." He laughed softly. "I was a fool. You were protecting yourself. I was terrified." He pulled back to look at her, his pale eyes warm now instead of cold. "Terrified of what would happen if I let myself feel. And then, you walked into my life with your veil and your secrets. And you destroyed every wall I had ever built. Are you complaining? I am grateful." He stroked Sarah's dark hair. "For you. For her. For every moment I almost lost and somehow kept." Bryony leaned into him, savoring his warmth. We were both hiding, she said quietly, both deceiving each other and ourselves. And yet, we found freedom anyway. She thought about everything they had survived. The claiming. The contract built on lies. The nights in darkness where truth had slowly emerged. They had both entered this marriage seeking escape, expecting nothing, prepared for cold indifference at best. Neither had expected love. Love had found them anyway. And in loving each other, they had not just saved themselves. They had freed their daughter from a curse that had haunted generations, had opened their kingdom to healing instead of fear, had proven that the things meant to protect them from pain were often the things that caused it most. I love you, Bryony said. Calder smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise after an endless winter. I love you too, he said, and I will spend every day for the rest of our lives proving I deserve you. You already have. She kissed him beneath the roses while their daughter laughed between them, and somewhere deep in her chest, the mate bond pulsed with golden light. Complete. Unbreakable. Eternal.